Well, Yasmin, I think there's multiple pressures happening right now, as General McCaffrey rightly laid out. The on-the-ground situation is incredibly complicated. It's not as if the IDF has wanted to go into Gaza since it departed in 2006. It just did briefly in 2014. That is a den of danger for any invading force. So there's that. But also, I think President Biden, he is leaning in clearly into the ears and minds of the Israeli government leadership, as well as on the military-to-military channels with General Austin, or Secretary of Defense Austin, I should say, who's discussing his experience of fighting ISIS, for example, in northern Iraq, and the close combat, the urban warfare, the intensity of it, and make sure you have a plan that's really, truly sufficient. And then for President Biden, what's your day after scenario? How does one stabilize this situation post-conflict? How does one identify a potential force that could go in, a governing authority that could go in? Could it be a multi-Arab force? Could it be the Palestinian Authority again? Israel does not want to govern and reinstitute a full occupation of Gaza. But those are all questions that are best answered, discussed, and answered now prior to an invasion. And I think that's where President Biden is lending his strong advice behind closed doors.
But it seems as if, Joel, that the Israelis don't necessarily have a plan for the governing of Gaza after they eradicate Hamas. And that seems to be part of the issue here.
Without a doubt. And maybe there is no really good answer. And at a certain point, the Israeli leadership is just going to have to make a decision about whether they fish or cut bait, because several 100,000 troops sitting alongside Gaza interminably is not sustainable. And there will be a moment where they're going to have to decide whether to go in or not. But having a good, clear answer, it may not be signed and with the T's crossed and the I's dotted, but there may be a hard enough plan in place to communicate to the Americans and to others in the region who have relationships with Israel. But if there is no real plan afterwards, then we're looking at a continued humanitarian disaster for the Palestinians in Gaza. And I think it is very important to put that on the table, that the Palestinian civilians are suffering in Gaza. And this is through no fault of their own, through the fault of Hamas. That's where the blame lays. But right now, they are suffering, and they will likely continue to suffer if there is no day after plan. And so hopefully, as we saw over the weekend in Cairo, there were efforts by Arab states to get together and talk about this. Hopefully, that kind of discussion is accelerating around the region as well.